In the bustling city of Jericho, a man named Zacchaeus was desperate to see Jesus. But he was a short man, and the crowd blocked his view. So he came up with a plan. He ran ahead and climbed a sycamore tree, peering through the branches to catch a glimpse. As Jesus passed by, he stopped right under the very same tree. He looked up, and to Zacchaeus' astonishment, called him by name. "Zacchaeus, come down immediately," Jesus said. "I must stay at your house today." The crowd was shocked. Zacchaeus was a chief tax collector, known as a sinner. But Zacchaeus scrambled down, overflowing with joy. Standing before everyone, his heart was changed. "Look, Lord," he declared, "I will give half of my wealth to the poor, and if I have cheated anyone, I will pay them back 4 times as much." Jesus smiled and announced, "Today, salvation has come to this house, for the Son of Man came to seek and to save what was lost." A sinner was found, a life was changed, and a community witnessed the power of a single, loving invitation. A message arrived for Jesus. "Lord, your dear friend Lazarus is sick." But instead of rushing to his side, Jesus waited. He told his disciples, "This illness will not end in death, it is for God's glory." When Jesus finally arrived in Bethany, Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. His sister Martha met him, her heart breaking. "Lord," she wept, "if you had been here, my brother would not have died." Jesus replied with a divine promise, "I am the resurrection and the life. Anyone who believes in me will live, even after dying." Then Mary came, falling at his feet in sorrow. When Jesus saw her weeping, and all the mourners around her, he was deeply moved. His spirit troubled, he asked one simple question: "Where have you laid him?" And then the God of all creation wept. Standing before the tomb, a cave sealed with a stone, Jesus commanded, "Take away the stone." After a prayer of thanks to his Father, he called out in a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out!" To the absolute astonishment of all, the man who had been dead walked out, still bound in grave clothes. "Unbind him," Jesus said, "and let him go." In that moment, grief turned to joy, despair to belief, and death itself had to bow its knee to the giver of life. In the home of Lazarus, the man Jesus had raised from the dead, a dinner was held in his honor. Martha served joyfully, and Lazarus reclined at the table with his friend and Savior. Then Mary, overcome with love and gratitude, came forward carrying an alabaster jar of incredibly expensive perfume. In a stunning act of devotion, she broke the jar and poured the fragrant oil on Jesus' feet. Then, in an even more humble gesture, she loosened her hair and wiped his feet with it, filling the entire house with the beautiful fragrance. But Judas Iscariot objected. "Why wasn't this perfume sold?" he asked indignantly. "It was worth a year's wages. The money could have been given to the poor." But Jesus knew his heart. Judas didn't care for the poor. He was a thief who wanted the money for himself. "Leave her alone," Jesus said, defending Mary's beautiful act. "She has done this to prepare me for burial. You will always have the poor among you, but you will not always have me." It had been a long day of teaching, and as evening fell, Jesus led his disciples into a boat to cross the Sea of Galilee. Exhausted, he found a cushion in the stern and fell into a deep sleep. The waters were calm, the sky was clear, and the gentle rocking of the boat promised a peaceful journey. But out on the open water, the weather turned with terrifying speed. A furious squall descended upon them. The wind screamed, whipping the sea into a chaos of towering waves that crashed over the sides, filling the boat with cold, dark water. The seasoned fishermen among them fought desperately against the storm, their faces etched with a fear they'd never known. This was no ordinary storm. It felt like the end. In their terror, they rushed to the back of the boat where Jesus still slept. "Teacher," they cried, shaking him awake, their voices trembling. Don't you care if we drown?" Jesus awoke. His eyes were calm, his presence steady amidst the chaos. He looked at their frightened faces, not with anger, but with a profound question. "Why are you so afraid? Where is your faith?" Then he stood. The wind tore at his clothes, the spray stung his face, but his voice cut through the roar of the storm with undeniable authority. He spoke not to the disciples, but to the storm itself. "Peace," he commanded. "Be still." And in that very instant, the screaming wind fell silent. The raging waves collapsed into a gentle, glassy calm. The clouds parted, revealing a starlit sky reflected perfectly on the now placid sea. The sudden quiet was as shocking as the storm had been. The disciples stood frozen, soaked to the skin, their hearts still pounding. They looked at the perfectly calm sea, then at the man who had commanded it. Awe washed over them, greater than their fear had been. They whispered among themselves, their voices filled with wonder and a dawning realization. "Who is this man? Even the wind and the waves obey him."